The good gentleman from the 13th, Representative Dent.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to begin by saying it is truly an honor to stand here in this body and share some thoughts and some feelings about Dr. Martin Luther King. In December, I was honored to travel to Washington, D.C. for some legislative business, so we went a day early. I've had a passion for this country and for this institution all of my life, since I was a small child. And so I woke on December 16th excited to be in Washington, D.C. and have an opportunity to be a tourist for a day, to tour the great monuments that represent this great republic that we call home. Our first step was the Lincoln Memorial, a shrine and elected in honor of President Abraham Lincoln. I walked up the steps, and I reached the top. I turned to the east towards the Washington Monument, and it took my breath away. It hit me. Not necessarily the view, because it's a great view. It's a beautiful, beautiful place to stand. But I realized that this is where Dr. Martin Luther King stood and gave his I Have a Dream speech. I'm older than most of you in this chamber, and I remember this. I remember it well. It was so important in our time. Dr. King began his address by referencing President Abraham Lincoln signing the Emancipation Proclamation. At that moment, the March on Washington, to me, came to life in a real way. I was totally awestruck and humbled as I turned and walked inside the monument and read the words engraved above Lincoln's statue. Madam Speaker, may I read?
Please proceed.
In this temple and in the hearts of the people for whom he saved the Union, the memory of Abraham Lincoln is enshrined forever. These two men, although born in different times, different cultures, different places, both desired harmony in times of civil unrest. Both wanted to save and unite the Union. Looking out on the mall on that cold and dreary December Sunday morning in 2018, in sharp contrast to that balmy August day in 1963, I tried to envision the over 250,000 people who listened to him. And I can only imagine the hopes and the dreams that were in the hearts of those people in attendance. Although only one of 10 speakers, Dr. King shared his vision for an America where all people worked and lived in harmony, with the common goal of building a better America. 12 hours prior to standing in front of these folks, which is something I'm guilty of, he had no idea what he was going to say the next day. And in the end, he strayed from what notes he had in front of him when renowned gospel singer Mahalia Jackson shouted out from the crowd, "Tell them about the dream, Martin. Tell them about the dream." And her words spurred him to improvise the part of his speech that most recognized by adding, "I have a dream," in front of each point that spelled out his desires for America. My favorite section, as most like it is for many of us, is where he stated, may I read again?
Please proceed.
"I have a dream my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today." His speech changed the way the Lincoln Memorial was viewed and raised it to greater prominence. It elevated the monument to a physical reference that eternally connects President Abraham Lincoln and Dr. Martin Luther King. Dr. King believed in a peaceful approach to bring about social change. He used pragmatic grace to win the hearts of others. In his The Drum Major Instinct sermon, he challenged us to live a life of service and laid out what was required to reach this goal. In Dr. King's words, to serve requires not entitlements or credentials, but requires a heart full of grace and a soul generated by love. He delivered this sermon in 1968, several years after the March in Washington, at the church he co-pastored with his father in Atlanta. It was one of his final sermons, given just 2 months to the day before he died. Dr. King wrote 5 books, gave thousands of speeches. Many of his speeches or sermons, many of his ideas, hopes, and dreams for this country don't receive the attention they rightly deserve. As we celebrate Dr. King's legacy today, I want to point out the life of service he lived, and in the end, how he felt that he may prematurely take his last breath because of his belief in the principles that he displayed throughout his life. He was a man who made the ultimate sacrifice for his country. We as public servants have a responsibility. Actually, we have an obligation. All of us in this room have an obligation to keep Dr. King's dream alive, respect this great man, and forever honor his legacy. And if we do that, we will make this world a better place. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you.